Picture this. The Middle East is ablaze. Iran, battered by missile strikes and teetering on the brink of regional war, scans the horizon for support. And yet, two of its most powerful allies, Russia and China, are nowhere to be seen on the battlefield. Instead, while Tehran faces destruction, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are shaking hands in Moscow, not over military plans, but over business deals, pipeline expansions, and the next phase of their economic partnership. Why are these supposed friends of Iran so conspicuously absent in her hour of need? What is really driving the ever-tightening Russia-China alliance, and how could this shape the world economy and your own life in the years ahead? To understand this remarkable moment, we need to take a step back, zooming out from the chaos in Tehran to the grand chessboard of Eurasian politics. Russia and China share more than just a border that stretches over 4,000 kilometers. They share a vision of a world order not dominated by the United States. And they carry a bundle of historical grievances, strategic calculations, and economic ambitions that have, over recent decades, drawn them into a powerful, if sometimes uneasy, alliance. Let's rewind to the aftermath of the Cold War. The Soviet Union had just crumbled, leaving Russia searching for a new identity. The West, led by Washington, seemed triumphant. China, meanwhile, was racing ahead with dizzying economic growth, determined to transform its newfound wealth into global influence. Iran, squeezed by sanctions and suspicion, was forced to look eastward for partners who would not judge or isolate her. The seeds of today's triangle, Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, were planted in the soil of exclusion and ambition. But alliances in this part of the world are never as simple as they seem. They are shaped by shifting interests, ancient rivalries, and a keen sense of realpolitik. Over the past 2 decades, several turning points have drawn Russia and China closer. When Russia intervened in Georgia in the year 2008, and later in Ukraine in the years 2014 and 2022, the West reacted with waves of sanctions. Cut off from Western capital and technology, Moscow turned to Beijing for new markets and fresh investment. Each crisis pushed Russia further into China's economic orbit. At the same time, China was busy sketching out its Grand Belt and Road Initiative, a vast network of infrastructure stretching from the Chinese coast to Western Europe. Russia and Iran became key nodes in this megaproject, offering land, energy, and strategic access. When the United States withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in the year 2018, Iran's isolation deepened, nudging it further into the embrace of Moscow and Beijing. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, known as the SCO, became a new platform for all 3 countries to discuss security, trade, and their vision for a multipolar world. But beneath the surface, there was always an undercurrent of mistrust, each country watching its partners as much as its rivals. Fast forward to the present. In the year 2024, trade between Russia and China exploded to nearly 245 billion United States dollars, a staggering increase of more than 1/4 compared to the previous year. Chinese imports of Russian liquefied natural gas have tripled over the past 5 years, reaching over 8 million tons in 2024. This is not just about energy. As of early 2025, more than 95% of all trade between Russia and China now bypasses the greenback entirely. They settle their accounts in yuan and rubles, a bold rejection of the Western-dominated financial system. For the first time in modern history, 2 of the world's largest economies are openly challenging the supremacy of the United States dollar. The numbers tell a dramatic story. In just 12 months, China's exports to Russia climbed to almost 8 billion United States dollars, up nearly 2% from the previous year. But more significant than the raw trade figures is what lies beneath them, a growing web of mutual dependency. By the year 2023, up to 90% of Russia's microelectronics imports came from Chinese factories. Russia, under the weight of Western embargoes, now relies on China for the chips, components, and machinery needed to keep its industries, and its military, functioning. Shipments of so-called dual-use goods, items that can serve both civilian and military purposes, surged above 4 billion United States dollars last year. These are not just widgets and widgets, but the backbone of Russia's war machine. This deepening dependence is visible in sectors far beyond energy and electronics. The Power of Siberia pipeline, a monumental infrastructure project, is projected to send up to 38 billion cubic meters of gas per year to China by the year 2025. New railroad links, joint ventures in mining and agriculture, and ambitious plans for Arctic shipping routes are all on the table. The two countries are not just trading goods, they are knitting their economies together, one pipeline and one contract at a time. Military cooperation has kept pace. In the year 2024, Russian and Chinese warships sailed together on joint naval patrols in the Arctic Ocean, a region long considered a Western stronghold, now the stage for new power plays. Their message to the world is unmistakable: we are here, we are organized, and we are willing to defend our interests together. Analysts at the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies say these exercises are more than symbolic. They reflect a genuine convergence of strategic interests, especially as both countries grow more concerned about Western military pressure. Yet for all the headlines about friendship and partnership, there is a crucial twist. When Iran, their supposed ally, faced existential threats from Israeli airstrikes, neither Russia nor China leapt to her defense. Instead, they focused on consolidating their own relationship, holding high-level meetings, signing new agreements, and discussing the next moves in their economic and strategic cooperation. Their silence in Tehran's hour of crisis raises a fundamental question: how deep does their alliance really go? Experts are divided. Some, like Janice Klug of the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, point out that China is happy to displace Western premium goods, but it is not interested in developing Russia as a competitor in high-tech areas. In other words, Beijing will sell Moscow the tools it needs, but it will not share the secrets to true technological autonomy. The relationship, though warm in rhetoric, is coolly transactional. China's willingness to support Russia is matched by its desire to keep Russia dependent, and never too strong. Others, such as Dmitry Trenin of the Carnegie Moscow Center, suggest that Russia and China are drawing closer not just out of necessity, but because they see a world in flux, one where the old certainties of American power no longer hold. Philip Rudnick at the Center for Eastern Studies argues that, for both countries, the steady growth in trade is a win-win proposition that carries no immediate risks. They are building a parallel system, one that can withstand Western pressure and offer new opportunities for economic growth. But let's be clear, this is not an alliance built on trust or shared values. It is a partnership born of necessity, a marriage of convenience, not of affection. Each side is acutely aware of the other's ambitions. Russia eyes China's growing reach in Central Asia with suspicion, fearing the loss of its traditional sphere of influence. China, for its part, is wary of getting drawn into Russia's conflicts, especially in Ukraine or the Middle East, which could jeopardize its global ambitions. The two countries cooperate closely, but always with one hand on the exit door. Let's explore three possible futures for this powerful but precarious partnership. The first scenario is a deepening alliance. Imagine a world where Russia and China effectively merge their economic and military interests, creating a new axis of power stretching from the frozen ports of the Arctic to the deserts of Central Asia. Over 95% of their trade is already conducted in yuan and rubles. What if that figure rises to totality? What if they standardize technology, share military intelligence, and build joint infrastructure across Eurasia? In this vision, China's technology and Russia's energy would fuel a vast new bloc, challenging the United States and its allies at every turn. This could herald the dawn of a true bipolar world order, reminiscent of the Cold War, but with economic interdependence as its foundation. But there are dangers lurking beneath the surface. As Janice Klug reminds us, China is careful not to let Russia grow too strong, especially in high-technology sectors. Tensions over influence in Central Asia, competition for resources, and disagreements over the rules of the game could all flare into open rivalry. History is full of alliances that began in harmony but ended in discord. Think of the Sino-Soviet split of the 1960s, when two communist giants turned from comrades to bitter rivals. In this scenario, today's partnership could unravel just as quickly if interests diverge. The second scenario is one of controlled cooperation, a pragmatic marriage where Russia and China continue to boost trade, align on select strategic issues, and present a united front in international forums, but always stop short of a full-blown alliance. They would keep a careful distance, as they did during Iran's crisis, each watching for signs of betrayal or overreach. This is, according to many experts, the most likely outcome. It allows both countries to maximize their leverage without tying themselves too closely to the other's fortunes. The status quo persists, with gradual shifts in global power but no sudden ruptures. This would be the least disruptive to the current world order, but it would also mean that the underlying tensions never truly disappear. The third and most dangerous scenario is one of escalation, where crises in the Middle East or elsewhere force Russia and China to pick sides. Imagine a situation where conflict between Israel and Iran spirals out of control, threatening global oil supplies and raising the specter of a wider war. In such a case, Russia and China could find themselves drawn into regional conflicts against their will, risking a dramatic reshuffling of alliances and a period of global instability not seen since the 20th century. The resulting chaos could send energy prices skyrocketing, disrupt supply chains from Europe to Asia, and plunge economies around the world into recession. So what does all this mean for you, the viewer, someone living far from the corridors of power in Moscow, Beijing, or Tehran? The answer is simple but profound. These shifting alliances and rivalries shape the world you live in every single day. The energy that heats your home, the prices you pay at the supermarket, even the technology in your pocket. Each is touched by the decisions made in distant capitals. When Russia and China bypass the dollar and build their own financial networks, it can mean higher transaction costs for Western companies, new opportunities for emerging markets, and a scramble for influence in Africa, Latin America, and beyond. Every time a pipeline is built, a trade agreement is signed, or a naval patrol is launched, the balance of power shifts a little more. If you are an investor, the message is clear. Watch the flow of currencies, energy, and goods. If you are a student, understand the historical patterns. Alliances of convenience often sow the seeds of future conflict. If you are simply curious about the headlines, remember that what happens between Russia and China is not just a story about politicians and generals. It is a story about the future of global order and the forces that will shape your economic security for decades to come. Let's dig a little deeper into the numbers. In the year 2024, bilateral trade between Russia and China soared to nearly 245 billion United States dollars, a jump of over 26% from the previous year. Chinese imports of Russian liquefied natural gas reached more than 8 million tons, tripling since the year 2019. Over 95% of trade is now conducted in yuan and rubles, bypassing the Western financial system. Russia is leveraging shipments of Chinese machine tools to reinforce its missile production and microelectronics sectors, critical for its defense industry. Shipments of dual-use goods from China to Russia exceeded 4 billion United States dollars last year, raising alarms in Western capitals about the circumvention of sanctions and the bolstering of Russia's military capabilities. It is worth noting that, while these numbers are impressive, they also reveal the asymmetry of the relationship. Russia depends on China for high-tech goods and market access far more than the reverse. As one secret fact many overlook, some 90% of Russia's microelectronics imports now come from China. This cements Moscow's dependence but also gives Beijing enormous leverage. Should the political winds shift, China could squeeze Russia with the flick of a regulatory switch, and the technological gap is only growing. While Russia can offer energy, minerals, and military know-how, it cannot match China's prowess in artificial intelligence, high-speed rail, or consumer electronics. Let's not forget the wider context. The United States, facing internal divisions and global pushback, is struggling to maintain its traditional leadership. Robert Gates, former United States Secretary of Defense, has warned that a divided America may not be able to deter the ambitions of Russia and China acting together. Meanwhile, Europe is torn between economic ties to China and security commitments to the United States. India, Turkey, and other regional powers are watching closely, hedging their bets and seeking opportunities in the cracks between the giants. What about Iran, the supposed third leg of this triangle? Despite its strategic importance, Iran remains the most vulnerable and least integrated partner. Its economy, battered by sanctions and political isolation, is heavily dependent on oil exports and foreign investment. While Russia and China have provided some support, they have stopped short of real intervention or alliance. The lesson is clear. In the ruthless world of great power politics, even close partners can find themselves abandoned when their interests no longer align. Looking ahead, the world faces a period of immense uncertainty. The Russia-China partnership is both a symptom and a driver of this change. If the alliance deepens, we could see the rise of new institutions, new rules, and new centers of power. If it falters, the resulting instability could be just as disruptive. Either way, the era of uncontested Western dominance is ending, and what comes next will be shaped by the calculations, compromises, and confrontations playing out right now across Eurasia. So what can you do? Stay informed. Follow the data. Watch how currencies, energy flows, and supply chains shift. Question the headlines, look for the underlying interests, and remember that in the world of global economics, today's friends can become tomorrow's rivals. Flexibility and awareness are your best defenses in a world where alliances are built on self-interest, not sentiment. In summary, are Russia and China truly partners for the long haul, or just opportunistic collaborators? The evidence points to a partnership of necessity, not of trust. Their economic and military ties are growing fast. Think of the tripling of liquefied natural gas imports from Russia to China in just 5 years, or the joint naval patrols in the Arctic. But each is always calculating its own advantage, always ready to pivot if the costs outweigh the benefits. They are united against a common rival, the West, but not by common values or long-term loyalty. As history shows, such alliances are powerful but also fragile. If you want to stay ahead as the world changes, keep watching our channel. We dig deeper into the stories behind the headlines, explaining how global shifts affect your investments, your studies, and your daily life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Russia-China partnership will survive the next global crisis? Where do you see the world order heading in the next decade? Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay informed,